Hi everybody, once again. You notice that I have already sent you some handouts where you have got some concrete exercises on which you are going to work to show the job of phonology, in general. Now let's work on your first page. And you're going to notice that as a very simple exercise, you have got some words to transcribe phonemically. One of the main points to show you through these simple examples is, to try to make you aware of the difference between first the what we call the surface form and the underlying form. Let me explain it clearly through these words. We have got, for example, the word serene. Serene is the form that native speakers know. This is the basic form. This is the underlying form. It's like a phoneme that exists in their mind. And of course, phonemes can be pronounced in different ways. So it's something which is abstract, and it takes different forms, different realizations according to different environments. For example, we're talking about L as a phoneme in English. This L can be pronounced by native speakers as clear or dark according to some rules that native speakers know unconsciously. So no need to go back to explain this because you are supposed to know this and we have already explained it. Now, same thing applies to these words. Serene is the basic form, is the underlying form. When it is used alone, it can be realized, it can be pronounced as serene. Notice the vowel after e, serene. Now, when we derive a longer word from it, that is, when we add a suffix to it, it's no longer serene. It becomes serenity. So one of the jobs of phonologists is to try to explain in terms of rules this relationship between the surface form and the underlying form. Okay, now let's do the same thing to sign. Now the word sign is the basic form, is the underlying form. It can remain itself when it is used alone. It can be pronounced as sign. This is its first realization. And there is another realization that it can take when we add to it the suffix al. It becomes signa in the word signal. Same thing for punish. Punish, punitive. Notice the change of the quality of the vowel here. Punish, punitive. Destroy, same thing. It's no longer oi after it becomes ah. Destroy, destruction here. So maybe if we have got time, we can go back to this issue to explain the relationship between the underlying form and the surface form in terms of phonological rules. Now let us, dwell on this opposition between the phoneme, which is the basic unit of phonology, and its realizations or allophones. And we are going to explain this through a concrete example of the sound P. And for this purpose, we are going to talk about three different realizations of it: the unaspirated P, the aspirated P, the unreleased one. What do you mean by unreleased P? The lips are not opened again after the sound is produced. Does this remind you of something that you have already seen? Of course, you should remember the three phases of stops. You remember that we talked about stops as being composed of three different phases. Phase 1, which is the closing phase, phase 2, the actual closure, and phase 3, the releasing or the opening phase. Now, sometimes P, when it is used in some phonetic environments, it can be unreleased. That is, that closure which should normally take place at the end of the production of P, it does not take place. So let's look at examples of words taken from English to show where P can be unaspirated or aspirated or unreleased. For example, here in spoke, how do we pronounce? How do we realize P in spoke? Is it unaspirated? Is it aspirated? Is it unreleased? So this is what we're going to find through these words here. Now let us first of all explain the notation given to you to help you understand the chart and to help you work alone on these words. So problem 13a. In the chart below, this is the chart, okay, put a check in the box if the allophone can occur in that environment. Let us first of all explain the notation. Explanations of the notation used. This phonetic environment shows or represents word initial position. That is to say, the first sound segment of a word. Here, it represents word final position. This is the place where we find the sound, and this sign here shows that there is nothing after it. It is the final sound here. Same thing here. This sign shows that there is nothing before it. It is the initial position, and this is the place where we find P. Here we find P after S. Here we find P before a consonant. Here we find it between two vowels, but the next vowel is stressed or accented. Here we find P between two vowels, and the second vowel, this vowel, is unaccented or unstressed. So these are the different contexts where we find P in these words. Now your job is to try to say in which context do we have, for example, this P is unaspirated. Is it in this context where it is initial, or this context where it is final, or this context where it is after S, or this context where it is before a consonant, or between vowels and this one is stressed, or between vowels and the second one is unstressed. Now, just to help you fill in the chart yourself, let us please talk about some concrete examples here. In the word spoke, this P being in this position after S, normally it is unaspirated. It takes this realization. Notice the realization is put between square brackets. All of them are put between square brackets. But you remember that we said phonemes should be put between slashes. Okay. Now here, operate. How do we pronounce? How do we realize P in operate? Is it unaspirated? Is it aspirated? Is it unreleased? Here we notice that the vowel before it is stressed, and the one here after it is unstressed. This is the context. So in this context, how do we realize P? Is it aspirated, unaspirated, or unreleased? Of course, here it is unaspirated. So we can't talk about this P being here. We have to put the check in here. Now let's talk about the other cases. For example, P in pig. What do you notice about the pronunciation of P in pig? Of course, as you know, and this is one of the phonological rules in English, when P is found initially at the beginning of words, automatically it should be aspirated. So in which box are we going to to put the check here? So it is in here, initial. So here we have to put the check here. Now let's talk about the other case. For example, clap. Suppose this is the last word you are going to produce. There is nothing after it that you are going to say. P is the final sound. Do you need to say clap? Notice when you want to give an order to somebody to tell him stop. Do you say stop? You just say stop. So you don't need to release the air for that P in the word stop. So where do we find this P which is unreleased? It is final. Therefore, what is the box where we're going to put the check? It's here, final. So here we're going to put the check. P is going to be unreleased in this context because it is final. Now here I think you know how you can proceed working on these words to find the exact rules that determine which realization to give P in which phonetic environment. When are we going to pronounce it as unaspirated? Where are we going to pronounce it as aspirated? And where are we going to pronounce it as unreleased? So try to work on this here now that you have got the things explained, and when we have got the other occasion, of course, we are going to finish the whole answer to this exercise. Anyway, thank you. We are going to have another occasion to work on page 2 and to work the full solution to this problem here. Okay, thank you, and see you another time.